Hey everybody, welcome to the 389th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a lot to talk about this week. And just as a little note, I am in Austin recording this from my hotel room, so I'm going to sound a little bit different. I think I also have a little bit of a cold, so I may even be more different than usual. But don't worry. We're going to be talking about this event I'm at, which is the Silicon Labs Works With conference, and we're going to be talking about what Matter is going to be and what it won't be at the start, even when we might expect it. We're also going to be talking about some new silicon from Silicon Labs, and we mentioned the Apple event last week. Well, we're going to be talking about Apple's iPhone satellite service and how it may one day relate to the IoT. We have got a new smart dimmer from Lutron that's worth a mention. End of life for a router. And we're going to be talking about the expected lifetime of certain IoT devices. There's also a new Nest doorbell making the rounds. And on the industrial and enterprise side, we've got some news from smart buildings and an industrial IoT platform getting a lot of money. And we're going to hear from our sponsor, Infineon, talking about digital payments. And our guest this week is Prashant Kanhere, who is the CTO of PayRange. This is a company that's operating 500,000 IoT devices. So we're going to be talking about how they handle updates at scale, how they handle managing all of that at scale, and even connected pool tables. All of this and more awaits you. But first, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Silicon Labs, and Works With by Silicon Labs has emerged as the go-to developer conference for building the skills that companies need to build impactful, connected devices. And this week, on September 13th and 15th, Silicon Labs brought together the most influential technology brands, ecosystem partners, and developers for 3 days of technical training, keynotes, and expert panels. If you missed it or just want a refresh, you can access it on demand at workswith.scilabs.com. Okay, Kevin, I guess I should start off.
Well, you're at the event, and I know we're going to talk about the panel that you moderated, among other things. And interesting, before we get into this, you and I almost had different takes on the same panel and how we feel about Matter.
Yes. So I moderated a panel about Matter being almost here. It is expected this fall. And my take was, oh my gosh, we are going to hate Matter when it comes out. I felt so much trepidation and so much, like if you hang out with people and there's like an elephant in the room, the elephant in the room was that everyone wanted people to be like, oh, Matter's amazing. But everybody knew that Matter wasn't really ready for prime time, and they kind of were like trying to hint and level set. So it was a little bit of a weird situation. So we did this panel, and on the panel, they really tried hard to be like, hey, so if you're doing these more complex things, Matter is probably not quite ready. Like everyone was like, Stacey, you're going to break Matter. And I get that. I have a really complex home. But Kevin, you were feeling a little bit more optimistic.
I am, because even though I know they're not delivering on their entire vision with the first spec and the first devices, they know what they still have to work on. Maybe they don't have solutions yet, but they're smart companies with smart people, and I have confidence that they will work things out. And I felt that for most average mainstream consumers, Matter does solve a lot of problems on day one. And the big one they kept talking about, and I agree with them, is onboarding and provisioning.
Man, they're so confident in that. You're going to use a QR code and a Bluetooth connection to get a device online, which is great because I recently had to set something up that used a soft AP and soft access point, which is where the device broadcasts a Wi-Fi network and then your phone finds it and then you go back to your other Wi-Fi network and turn it on. It's such a pain.
Too many steps and too many points of failure.
So now we're going to have it's like the HomeKit onboarding. It's great. You use a QR code, you connect via Bluetooth, you do all the credentialing before it even gets on the network. It actually checks to make sure it's a real Matter device, like a certified Matter device before it gets on there. And poof, then it's on there.
I know they were touting it, and maybe anybody watching was like, yeah, okay, that's nice. It actually is nice, because one of the biggest barriers to the smart home is, getting a device working on your network. And not to overlook a really important point here, it was mentioned you may have devices that weren't interoperable before. They will be now. To what degree, that's going to vary a little bit on day one. But more importantly, you won't have multiple sets of instructions and multiple manuals and multiple ways to onboard. That's going to level the playing field for onboarding to make it that HomeKit-like simple process.
Yes. We also found out exactly how the role that the blockchain is going to play in this. Remember, we were all excited about the blockchain? All right, it's not that exciting. I mean, it's exciting and good, but it's not like what I wanted it to be. And
it's a good use, though. I think it's a perfect use.
But it is a good use, yes. So basically, your certification, like, hey, I'm a true Matter device, and the certificate associated with that is stored in a digital ledger. That's it.
Right.
Yes, good use case. I was hoping they would also be able to push out updates and things could programmatically update. That's not happening. But Matter does
They might be able to check for updates and check versions in that database. Not yet. I agree. There's a lot of not yet, unfortunately. And I understand why you feel the way you feel, because there is so much of it. But I'd rather see them have this ledger that the devices, as you onboard them, check for the certifications before they even get on your network, right? So that way you're getting a certified Matter device. It's got its certified hardware. It's got software to the spec. So you don't have to worry about, no matter what company it came from or what country it came from, is this backdoor filled, malware, this, that. I think that's good. And to be honest, expanding the use of blockchain to have a truly distributed ledger that like I have a copy of the entire ledger and you have a copy and everybody has a copy. That's blockchain. That's typical blockchain use. It doesn't need that.
Yeah. All right.
You just wanted to mint Matter coins.
I didn't want to do anything with coins, but I did want to programmatically update and monitor my devices.
Right.
Maybe one day. Anyway. Okay. So I wrote all this down because I think it's worth it, really elucidating for people. And then also I'm going to talk about it in the newsletter this week. So, you don't have to jot this down because you'll read it later. But
wait, we have to take notes when we listen to this?
Oh, yeah. Get out your notepads, baby.
389 episodes in, and now you tell me?
There's a test at the end. Our final episode's just going to be a test.
I'm screwed.
So this is where Matter is going to break, I think, based on all the conversations I've had in the last 2 days. When you want to add devices and interoperate them in two systems, I think you're probably going to run into some issues. I don't think they'll be insurmountable, but I think it's not going to be as easy as you think. And originally, when Matter came out, I was kind of excited because it looked like you wouldn't have to have an app for every single device that is on your network that you buy, because all of its basic functionality would be taken care of by Matter. That's not true. You're not going to be able to get rid of most of your apps. One, because not all of the features for some of these devices will be supported. So like a really obvious example would be like your lights. The on, off, and certain colors might be supported by Matter, but like the cool light recipes, you're going to need the app. Things like door locks, you're probably still going to need the app to do things initially related to like calibration and installation. That's not going to be part of Matter.
You might be able to get rid of some apps. But
yes, I think the simplest device, like if you have just a basic white light bulb that turns on and off, or a smart plug that's not measuring energy consumption, dump that out.
Right.
Scheduling on, off, all of that feels pretty reasonable.
Real quick, just because you mentioned it up front, I know you got a list here, but the devices, if you have multiple platforms, this gets into what they call the multiple controller admin. We knew this already, so it wasn't a major newsflash, but you still have multiple brains of a smart home there. And when it comes to your automations, if you have automations on a device from both brains or multiple brains, that's where you may have an issue. And that's why you said, I think it's not going to be an insurmountable problem. You're just going to have to track down which brain is the right one and shut off the other brain.
Yeah, basically, like, remember in school, like when you had to do group projects? This is a group project.
I hate group projects. And this is
no
why.
one likes group projects. More brains means more things trying to control stuff.
Everybody has an opinion.
Exactly. Do you want complex smart home routines? If you're that person, you're going to run into some bumps in the road, I believe, in Matter. And that's okay. They're working on it. They know. Do you want to control your video cameras or your robot vacuums? That's not going to be part of this version of Matter. They have always said this, but I'm constantly surprised by the people who come up to me and they're like, I didn't know Matter wasn't going to support video cameras or robot vacuums or appliances. And I'm like, not yet. That's V2.
But they did say, here's the path to get those. They're open to supporting anything. They just basically said, build it and bring it. Look at our spec, work with our data models, bring it. And if we can get you certified, we can start supporting that device type.
Yeah, they already started. They already have working groups on all of these things, but it's not going to be in the first version of this or even the version 1.1 or 1.2. There's going to be some optional security recommendations tied to like the hardware, which I had hoped would be a secure enclave on some of these devices. It doesn't sound like that's actually part of the spec. It's a recommendation, but it's not mandatory. There are things that are mandatory. There's encryption that's mandatory. There's ways to handle updates. You have to be able to do over-the-air updates. But some of it, I'm like, it's all right. But it's not as robust as maybe we wanted it or thought it would be. But here's what will happen. Kevin mentioned the most important, provisioning is solved. Also, your Zigbee and Z-Wave devices are going to continue to work through gateways. Maybe not everyone. The gateway manufacturer and the device manufacturer have to do a Matter update. But it does look like a lot of these devices will be supported through a gateway. We had Jim Kitchen, who is in charge of Comcast's smart home efforts, and he's like, yeah, all of our gateways are going to get updated, and all of your existing devices in the home should work. That's the plan. So that's kind of where I feel like it's going to break and what we know about like what's going to work. And I feel like we're in a good place. I do feel like this is kind of too little too late because for developers, one of the big promises of Matter was that you're going to be able to build one app, right? Like one set of integrations for everything. So you didn't have to support Works with Madam A. You didn't have to support Works with Google. But that's not going to be true. What's going to be happening is your device is going to get sort of commoditized at the basic level. You're still going to need to maintain and do your own app for anything fancy that, gives you additional value in the Matter world, be it lighting recipes, be it some sort of AI services, I don't know. And you're also still going to have to play and develop for the big companies. So Apple hasn't really talked a lot about this, and maybe they're kind of an outlier. But Google, for example, has their smart home developer kit that has things like they're talking about intelligence clusters and being able to like do home and away. And that's a layer up from Matter. So if you want your device to be part of Google's like home and away system, you're going to have to build for that. Amazon has what they call their ambient home SDK. You're going to have to build for that if you want to have like the similar kind of home and away and more smarter features inside Amazon's ecosystem. So this whole idea of being a developer and just kind of building for Matter and not for anything else has really gone out the window.
Yeah, and that's just a timing thing because this took longer than the market was ready to wait for. So all these companies have already built these add-ons or value adds, and Matter is still working on the basics for 3 years. So it's a shame. I think the vision was right. I think it took a while, too long, but I do see benefit.
I don't think this is going to change the world right out the gate, but it's a good thing. So I just want people to be like, oh, okay.
If nothing else, I think what it will do is expand the potential market for consumers getting into a smart home, right? Because you're removing a major barrier, and they're not going to be the kind of people that have complex routines and things, so they wouldn't know that this is breaking or whatever. And that's good for the industry as a whole, which could spur more investment, research, development for the rest of us.
True. And someone mentioned this on the panel, and it's very true. They're hoping that having Matter there will help smaller device companies add intelligence to their products. So like if you're if you're a connected fish tank maker, if you support, they don't support fish tanks, but like on and off for the heating element and temperature, it's possible that you could have your fish tank thermostat, right, certified under Matter, and that could just work. And so that might be kind of a cool new product coming out.
The cost and the effort is relatively low compared to prior programs. That's the key.
Yes. All right. So this was Silicon Labs event. So of course they brought news. They've got 2 new chips. The first chip is a Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth LE chip. I'm going to link to the news so you can get your own model number. This is just a basic chip for Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth compatible devices. And you're going to see that in all kinds of stuff. Matter has Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth for provisioning, and then it has Thread for low data rates. So this is like a chip you might see, in a Wi-Fi powered device. Exciting. The thing that's notable about this is that it has double the battery life, which is great. This means if you're a device maker, you could either have the device work much longer without changing batteries, or you could make it smaller because you need half the battery capacity that your customers are used to, or you could add new features or some mix of all three. Okay. They also announced it's a 900 megahertz SoC. So that's an SoC for Wi-Sun, and it's going to be a sub-gigahertz long-range transmission radio. So, yay.
Smart cities.
Yeah, smart cities. They're marketing it on Wi-Sun. We heard a lot about Wi-Sun. We'll talk about that in the next few weeks because I've got thoughts.
I suspect they're not positive thoughts based on that comment.
It's not positive. It's just I have thoughts. It's
okay.
Like, this is where this seems to be, and this is where it might be useful, and it's worth talking about for people. So y'all know.
Fair enough.
With Matter, they're announcing a complete Matter development solutions kit. This is going to have support for Wi-Fi, Matter over Thread, BLE for commissioning, and Matter bridges to Zigbee and Z-Wave. So all of this is going to help anybody who wants to build like a bridge device for Matter, like old stuff to Matter. This will help them. And then they've announced an end-to-end, my favorite marketing word, end-to-end development platform with connectivity support for Amazon Sidewalk. So this is the Silicon Labs Pro Kit for Amazon Sidewalk. You're going to have the radios, the sub-gigahertz radio. It's going to have Secure Vault, so it's going to have a secure enclave on the chip. It'll have Bluetooth, and it's going to have software and tools pre-flashed on the kit, on the device itself, so you can just take this and connect right to Amazon Sidewalk. And this was another topic at the event. I'm going to write more about this in the newsletter also, but the Sidewalk was a little bit interesting because I feel like, kind of like Matter, I've been waiting for this for a long time. It's not going to be here just yet. I don't think consumers are going to see Matter devices until 2024 at the earliest. Maybe late 2023, but really you're not even going to...
Matter devices or Sidewalk devices?
Oh, Sidewalk devices. You're going to see Matter devices this year.
I was going to say.
They're already in the market. Sorry about that.
You're really down on this Matter thing now.
You're not going to have Sidewalk devices until really 2024. And there was an interesting pivot when they started talking about Sidewalk, which, again, if y'all recall, Amazon is putting Sidewalk-capable radios inside their Ring devices, inside their Amazon Echo devices. And the idea is to create this low-power, wide-area network for IoT devices that uses your home's Wi-Fi as backhaul. So it's a really awesome idea. I think y'all know I'm excited about low power wide area networks so much. And I love the economics of this model because it provides coverage without a lot of capital expenditures. And Amazon's talking about providing the actual data on this network for free. You just have to go over AWS. They just want to send all that data to, their cloud services. But I thought it was going to be more smart home oriented. And here, Matt Johnson, the CEO of Silicon Labs, actually started talking about Sidewalk in industrial use cases. And I thought this was really interesting, this industrial pivot that seems to be happening on the Sidewalk front. And maybe that's because Amazon got some bad PR when people were like, oh, I do not want to share my network with Amazon. So they just don't want to bring smart home stuff in there. I don't know, but it was worth noting.
Well, that would be a major pivot because Amazon's putting in these radios into smart home devices.
Yeah, but it has
I know
it
there's
has
reach.
a mile-long range. I mean, it's a pretty significant range. So you can have coverage. I mean, if it's an industrial corridor, maybe everyone sticks a bridge device, maybe sticking a Madam A device in your office. I don't know.
I think fewer people, and there weren't too many to begin with, I think fewer people will be happy giving Amazon free backhaul to that network if it's going to be all industrial data that they get no benefit from.
Maybe. We'll see. I mean, they probably won't notice.
True. Probably true.
I mean, if it works as intended, you shouldn't really notice it.
But they're still doing it, and I know.
They are still doing it. Well, they're not doing it yet. Anyway, so Silicon Labs Sidewalk kit isn't going to be available until the second half of 2023. And that's why I'm kind of like, oh, Sidewalk won't be out for quite some time. So we don't even have coverage maps on Sidewalk yet. So we'll be looking for those. We'll be looking for launch dates for the network, and we'll see what we find.
Speaking of coverage, I know we're going to talk about the Apple event. And if you're into iPhones, Apple Watches, I guess that's really it. Yeah, I don't think they showed anything else off. They had that event last week, but the interesting thing was more coverage in an emergency with an iPhone. The iPhone 14 lineup actually can communicate with, I believe it's Globalstar satellites. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know if you're going to use it, but in an area where you don't have cellular coverage and you need to churn out an emergency SOS. It's a rather clever implementation, and it will be free for the first 2 years at least, they said. I thought that was rather interesting that they may charge for this in the future as a service.
Just so you understand how big of a deal this is, Apple is buying 85% of Globalstar's capacity for the next 2 years. It is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason we're talking about this isn't because we're excited necessarily about iPhones, although this is a pretty cool feature and brand new, but because this is part of what I feel like is Apple's stealth asset tracking location network. So when did Apple launch? Was it last year that Apple launched Find My with the ultra wideband and, AirTags and that sort of thing?
It might have been 2 years ago.
All right.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, I think, because my phone is almost 2 years old and it has the UWB chip in it.
Then Apple is now layering in what is going to be a very powerful and very accurate geolocation network. Because if you have satellite capacity that knows where things are, and then you have the really fine-tuned ultra-wideband asset tracking, combining that information lets you basically know where things are anywhere on the planet that has, iPhones in it. Or Apple devices in it, and poof. This doesn't mean your AirTags are going to be able to talk to the satellite network, but that satellite network can talk to the phones can talk to the AirTags, so you're basically creating a record wherever there's iPhones that could be accessible anywhere of devices. And for the IoT, this is a big deal. A lot of people in the IoT are really looking at super granular location data. Vodafone just signed a deal with a company to do this. It was called Topcon. They did that last week. I see lots of LoRaWAN satellite plays happening from the asset tracking perspective. So I just wanted to bring that up. This is not there yet, but Apple is creating this underlying potential network that could really be impressive. And will also be closed, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. We've got device news. So, Kevin, up in your neck of the woods is my favorite lighting company, or light switch company, I guess, Lutron.
Practically in my backyard, and I think I want to buy this new Diva Smart Dimmer.
Yeah, they launched this week, and I'll just say it, I'm religious about Lutron. Their stuff just works. Yes, you have to have a gateway, but once you have that gateway installed, it works on HomeKit, it works with Apple, it works with Google, it works with the Lutron app. They're part of the CSA, the Connectivity Standards Alliance, and interested in Matter, but they did not I asked them about their plans for Matter, and they were kind of like, we have a gateway. Wink, wink. So, okay. The light switches talk to the gateway via a proprietary Clear Connect protocol. So that's kind of why it works so well. I'll be honest. It is their own optimized, it's kind of like Sonos with music, their own proprietary thing that runs over Wi-Fi in the case of Sonos. But here it's their protocol that runs, I guess, over Wi-Fi using gateway. Anyway, so this switch is a rocker style switch. So a traditional rocker is, or a toggle switch. Those are usually what people call them. Is that what you call them, Kevin?
I call it a rocker.
Yeah. So it's not like that. Yeah, it's flat.
To me, it's not like the old school toggle. That's a small little thing, like a thing sticking out of the wall. It's like a rocker panel.
Yeah. Oh, Lucian calls it paddle style. So there's the other word.
There we go. That's the official name. Yes.
All right. So this is a paddle style dimmer, and they also have a switch, and it's nice. It's just as expensive as the other Lucian switches.
It's $70. I'm looking at it at my local Home Depot right now. And it does work with everything as long as you have the hub. Works with up to 150 watts of LED bulbs or 600 watts of incandescence. It's got the paddle as well as a little dimmer lever, I guess I would call it, as well as some LED lights to show the light level. So,
yeah. And if you're interested in these, I feel I need to tell you that these will not work if you put Hue bulbs or something in the bulb thing and you buy this switch, it's not going to work. Only one can be smart.
Right. No neutral wire required, worth mentioning.
Yes. No neutral wire. And the nice thing is if you've got like a 4-gang switch, which is like 4 switches all in a row, and you really only want 1 or 2 of them to be smart, you can install the Diva style switch and it won't look weird with all the other paddle style switches, which I don't know how fancy you are, but like this drove my husband nuts when I had.
Oh, they have to match.
Yeah. And you can still control these with the Pico remote. So that's still an option. And it they have the ability to do now three-party switches. Is that what they call it? I can never remember the like technical term, but basically if you have 2 switches on a wall, like maybe you have one upstairs that controls your hall lights, 3-way. So you have one upstairs that controls your hall lights, and then you have one downstairs that controls the same lights. So basically, it's 2 switches for controlling the same circuit. You can still set these up like that. So, yay. All right. We obsess over things like, hey, how long is this connected device going to last? You spend money on it, you put it on your network, you don't want to throw things away unnecessarily. And we're getting, as the smart home evolves, we're getting answers. So it looks like, if you think about video cameras and things like that, so doorbells, you're looking at like 3 years, maybe 5 years. We're looking at a refresh cycle of every 3 years, it looks like. And now Eero is saying, hey, our original router from 2016, they stopped selling it in 2017, but that original router.
People still have them though.
Yeah, they still have them. It's going to stop getting support and updates.
No more guaranteed software security updates after this September 30th. So that's about a little more than 6 years. And before the show, we were talking about this, like how long do we think a router should last? And I think it's about right, 5-ish, 6-ish years, because if you have a router that's 5 years old, you're at least 1, maybe even 2, or you're approaching 2 upgrade cycles in terms of the wireless protocol standard.
Yes. So, you'll be on Wi-Fi 4 and everybody else is on Wi-Fi 6. And that's no good. If you think about, Google has said that they're going to support their Nest Wi-Fi routers for at least 5 years after launch. So Google's definitely kind of coming in on this 5-year time frame too.
Yeah, Netgear's a little light with the 3 years of support.
Yeah, maybe that's just because Netgear's maybe veered towards more hardcore router buyers. I mean, It takes a special person to buy a router. There's more of them out there, but remember, like probably about 5 or 6 years ago, 80% of people just took whatever router their ISP gave them. So
right, yeah, and they paid a rental fee and all that. Yeah. The other aspect to this is ISP speeds. Like, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where I could only get, say, 50 megabits per second. I say not that long ago, within the last 6 years. Now I have a gig, and if my wireless router can't push a gig worth of data to my devices around the house, then I'm paying for speeds that I'm really not using. So that's a whole nother piece to this puzzle.
It's a whole nother ball of wax. All right. Well, and your devices have to be capable of it.
That too. Speaking of capable devices, we mentioned last week that Google is having a hardware event in October. We suspect it's Pixel 7, possibly some new Nest Gear. I would say definitely some new Nest Gear based on 9to5Google that took a look at the latest Google Home app. And what they do is they rip apart the actual executable mobile app and they look at the code. They found images of a new wired Nest doorbell. The overall design is similar to the current model. However, it definitely looks maybe a little thicker, but definitely a little shorter. So that's one of the things that the original Nest doorbell was a big chunky monkey. And it just, some people don't like that. I mean, So if you're looking for a smaller Nest doorbell, it looks like one's coming. It will be wired, and it will also support 24/7 recording, which I presume requires a subscription, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. So
got a lot of ball of waxes this week. Okay, let's move to some enterprise and industrial news. A company that I followed for a while called Mappd. I believe we've had their CEO here on the podcast. This is a company that does building data. So you install their hardware and their software, and they run through basically all of your building systems, and they make them accessible via API. And this is valuable because right now everyone's like, holy cow, our buildings are producing so much carbon and we've got to be more energy efficient. So now the goal here is to use this data to really make buildings, again, more efficient. So Mappd is now opening free access to their data normalization platform for smart buildings. So this means anyone can use this and get started on Mappd and see what's in their building. And then they can decide if they want to upgrade to really control this stuff. Mappd does use an open schema. It's called the Brick schema. And so this is where we start talking about ontologies and things like that. But basically it's a labeling scheme. It's a labeling scheme for all the data that's coming in around this. And you can use that to then make rules. So this is big news. It ties in with Microsoft has their digital realty core that they're working on. And it's like a digital twin effort for buildings. This is the sort of data you're going to need to create a digital twin of a building. And Mappd is saying, hey, we can give this to you initially for free. And it's pretty quick. It says they can map your data, your building data in 4 minutes. That's nuts. So check that out if you own a building.
It'd be cooler if they used drones to map the building, but that's just me.
Oh, no. That's like an extra layer. You just got to go over the network, man. And speaking of network and kind of another weird middleware player, it's not weird. Litmus Automation this week has announced that it's closed $30 million in funding, and it was led by industrial equipment maker called Belden. And Litmus is basically, you run them in your factories and it pulls data from your industrial equipment, which is all kind of, a lot of it's proprietary, and they normalize it. So they act as a middleware layer between your OT network and the IT network. They do it in a way that's, automated and easy. There are a couple efforts out here, including some open source efforts, but Litmus has apparently done well enough to get people excited enough to put in money. It says it can collect data from more than 250 systems without the need for custom code. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, I've talked to Litmus before. I think it's a really good company. And I'm kind of impressed that it's still out there because a lot of these smaller industrial automation companies have been bought. And I don't know if people are just like, middleware is not sexy. And a lot of the ones that have been bought are around network monitoring that could kind of have a cybersecurity angle to them. But I really think this is a compelling use case. So keep an eye on them. And I think that concludes the news. So let us go to the Internet of Things podcast hotline, the segment of the show where we answer your questions about the IoT. This week's hotline is sponsored by Silicon Labs and its Works With event. The event was held this week, and the technical training sessions, keynotes, and panels that will help you build IoT devices can be found on demand at workswith.scilabs.com. All right, so the hotline, like I said, is the place where we answer your questions. And if you call us at 512-623-7424 and ask us your questions, it might get answered on the show. And for the month of September, you will be entered to win a Hue Tap Dial Switch, which is my latest favorite button device. It's a lot of fun if you have Hue lights. Again, that number is 512-623-7424. And this week's question comes from Ryan. Let's hear it.
Hi, Stacy and Kevin. My name's Ryan. I was calling about smoke detectors, connected smoke detectors. We had a fire on our farm a few years ago, and when we built back, I wanted to get some connected smoke detectors so I could be alerted as soon as possible if there was a problem. But at the time, there didn't seem to be that many options on buying them. Is there any wireless smoke detectors that you would recommend today that would give notifications? Thanks so much for your show. I enjoy hearing your guys' banter and learning all kinds of things each week.
All right. Well, there are a number of options here for Ryan. Not every smart smoke detector will actually generate notifications. I know that's important for this particular use case, but you may not even need a smart smoke detector because some of the smart speakers on the market actually can listen for the sound of a alarm and then notify you. Specifically, like the Alexa Guard service, their free service actually does this. They do have a subscription service called Alexa Guard Plus that adds more features, but listening for the smoke alarms and sending notifications will be free. So, that's a potential option right off the bat. You can just enable that if you have Amazon Echo.
A Madam A device out there?
Yes. I should have said Madam A Guard, but I didn't. I apologize.
Abase yourself. Yes, apologize, Kevin.
Boo,
it's okay. We
boo.
forgive you. All right.
Yes.
And Google does the same thing.
Yeah. Google's got the Nest Protect smoke alarms. There's no subscription. Like they do offer a subscription for Nest Aware for notifications and longer recording times on like video cameras and such, but you don't need a subscription for the Nest Protect smoke alarms to get notified in the case of, fire or something to that effect. So that's
But those are
definitely another
expensive
option.
smoke alarms.
Yeah, they're not cheap. But I've noticed that the less expensive ones, say from Kitty and First Alert, often they announce throughout the house that there's a fire, but getting notifications when you're away from home does not seem to be part of these product offerings. So
yeah, they have. So Kitty and First Alert do have Wi-Fi capable smoke alarms that you can get notifications from, but they are more expensive, much like the Nest Protect smoke alarms. But the Google smart speakers and their Nest hubs, those devices, just like with Madam A, can listen for the sound of a smoke alarm going off. Now, that particular service does require a Nest Aware subscription, but they will, if they hear that, if your smart speakers hear the sound of a smoke alarm service and you have a Nest Aware subscription, they will send you an alert. So there's a couple ways to skin this cat, and it kind of just depends on what devices you may have and how comfortable you are with just, waiting for paying for a subscription, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you may already have a solution in your home if you have the supported speakers from either Amazon or Google, and you just need to either enable that or add a subscription, which is a lot cheaper than replacing all your smoke alarms. But if you don't have those and don't want those, you do have smoke alarm options as well.
But since we're approaching the autumnal equinox and the time which we fall back, so daylight savings time? No, standard time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what time we're going to be in. Anyway, whatever
We're
time.
going to go back to standard time.
Okay. This is your reminder to change the batteries in your smoke alarm. This is a good time to do it either at the fall or the spring equinox or fall back, spring forward.
I also change my HVAC filters every season change, every 3 months.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's also good. And I would also let you know that smoke alarms need to be replaced every 10 years. So if you're, coming on that decade, maybe you want to look at smarter ones. Maybe you don't want to spend that much money on smoke alarms. So that's our little smoke alarm segment. Hopefully, Ryan, that helps you. If you would like us to help you out and leave us a question, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win a Philips Hue Tap Dial Switch. Did I get that right this time?
You did.
Excellent. I win a Hue Tap Dial Switch. All right.
I bought one, by the way, on the show last week, and it came in 2 days, and I love it.
Oh, good. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And kind of sorry. Like, Oh, Kevin, I've tempted you into another device. Okay. Oh, that's actually, to go full circle, my buttons are going to be a really good test of what you can and can't do with Matter, because I'm going to have to reprogram those babies. And I think we're going to see some friction. All right. That concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, who is Prashant Kanhere, who is the CTO of PayRange. This is a company that is making credit card payments for laundry, vending machines, and even pool tables possible. We'll be talking about scaling IoT devices. We'll be talking about making over-the-air updates to under-resourced devices. It's going to be super fun. So stay tuned for him. But first, a message from our sponsor. And this week's sponsor is Infineon. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. And this week's sponsor is Infineon. And today I have Oliver Manahan, who is the Senior Director for Smart Cards and IoT Security at Infineon, to talk to us about the future of payments and what that future is going to look like and why it's a little closer than you might think. Oliver, there is totally a strong trend away from cash and contact-based payment cards towards contactless payments, yes?
Yes, absolutely. And thanks, Stacey, for that question. The trend was already occurring. And I think, as we've all lived through a pandemic for 2.5 years now, we've just seen that trend accelerate. So the future of payments is certainly digital, and consumers want to pay securely, quickly, and whether that's in-store, online, or in any other method, wherever they are in the world. So this convenience does bring some key challenges for manufacturers, such as low power consumption and performance. So at Infineon, we have Contactless Competence Center, which means we help our customers navigate rising demands for user convenience in fast-evolving contactless landscape.
So what technology advances are going to transform how we pay?
There are 5 main technologies we see driving payment transformation. So the first one is biometrics. The next one is wearables and connected devices. Another one is digital currencies and wallets, quantum computing, and of course, near and dear to our heart always is greener contactless cards or more sustainable cards.
Well, can we go a little bit more into the digital wallet concept? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the one that most people are familiar with is Apple Pay. So a digital wallet essentially contains the digital version of the variety of cards that you might today carry in your wallet or purse. So this opens up simple, convenient payment options for the users and their devices. Not only people, but connected devices will also initiate and process payments in the IoT. For example, more electric vehicle charging stations recognize the car and automatically process payments.
Nice. So last question for you. What is the payment market of the future going to look like?
Yeah, so the future of payments will be digital. And simply put, that means we'll have more choices in how we pay. And of course, there will be new interfaces such as Bluetooth, low energy, ultra wideband, Wi-Fi, et cetera. But for the consumer, I think this means, not only can you pay for things with your watch or perhaps with your ring, but also connected devices in your home. For example, your refrigerator could in fact order your groceries for you, or your smart speaker can order things for you. What we don't want to have happen is perhaps a smart doorbell being able to order something that a neighbor comes in and wants to play a prank on you. So we need to ensure that these devices are secure and convenient, and we bring a lot of solutions to bear in that world.
All right. So where could our listeners go to find out more about Infineon and digital payments?
Visit www.infineon.com to learn how Infineon makes the IoT work.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and I am here actually in Austin, Texas, with Prashant Kanhere, who is the CTO of PayRange. Hello, Prashant. How are you today?
Hi, Stacey. I'm fine.
I am really excited to talk to you because PayRange is a company that makes it's a Bluetooth module that goes on vending machines, and it uses your phone as backhaul for connectivity. So what that means is you don't think you're paying with your phone, but you're paying with your phone for stuff. And Prashant's going to give you a better intro in a minute. But I'm excited because I met this company when it first started in 2014, 2014?
Yes, 2014.
Yeah, so long ago, and they're doing so well, you guys. They're installed on 500,000 machines right now, which is one of the largest IoT deployments I'm going to go with for quite some time. Let's go. Prashant, thank you for coming, and why don't you just tell us a little bit about PayRange and what it offers?
Sure. So PayRange, as you mentioned, one of the verticals we have is vending machines. We also have a few other verticals we'll talk about later. But yeah, the idea is that for hundreds of years, 100 years or more, these vending machines and laundry machines and all these coin-based machines have operated the same way pretty much. You go in there, you put some coins in there, and it dispenses the service or product, right? And in today's connected world, that's just such a dichotomy where nobody has coins anymore. There's coin shortage. People don't want to touch coins, currency, whatever, right? So when we first started, our founder, Paresh Patel, had a brilliant idea where, hey, everyone is bringing a supercomputer to the machines. So they carry it in their pocket. You have a cell phone that's connected, that has high bandwidth and amazing UI, right? So why build a UI and connectivity in a payment system that goes in the machines? So the idea here is that we have a little IoT device we call BlueKey that goes inside the machine, connects to the controller in the machine, and that connects to our app. As soon as we are close to the app, the BlueKey is broadcasting on BLE. The app picks it up, and you choose that machine and pay, and you're done.
When you're using my phone or when I see a BlueKey in the wild and I'm asked to pay, am I asked to pay like using NFC, or it sounds like, do I download an app that works? How does that happen?
Good question. Yeah. So it's not NFC because like I mentioned, all NFC readers need a backhaul connectivity, right? So the way it works is the BlueKey talks to our app. So people have to download an app, and every machine that has PayRange actually has a QR code. You just scan it, download the app, and then you actually fund the app. We have a wallet just like Starbucks wallet. So you fund with Apple Pay or Google Pay or credit debit card. And we have some actually pretty innovative ways of funding cards as well. Two of them that we introduced this year was crypto. One of those crypto. So if you have a crypto account, you can do that.
Of course it was.
Right? Of course, right. Everybody's doing that, so why not? And I think at this point in time, people's balance is pretty low in crypto. So
yeah, I'm like paying for my laundry with crypto, sure.
And then the other thing that's way more innovative is that if we have, many of us have these store cards, gift cards lying around. So you can actually put your card in, like say a leftover Target card.
Oh yeah, like the $3 that are left over on my Target card?
Exactly. So you can enter your card number and there's an exchange that happens in the background. But yeah, you can actually fund your account with that as well.
I like it. Yeah, that's a nice way. I know that there's those gift card aggregator type things that take a fee and yeah.
And we found some patterns. For example, all of our laundry machines were solidly booked on Saturdays and Sundays. But on Wednesday, Thursdays, almost no traffic, right? So we actually thought maybe we can actually propose to one of our big operators and say, hey, look, we know that you want to balance your load on the machines and actually use the machines on the non-peak days, right? So why don't we do an experiment where let's take a subset of the machine population, say 10,000 machines, and we send an offer to those machine users and say, hey, thanks for using our system on Saturday. You come back on Wednesday, we give you 25 cents off.
Oh my gosh, you're doing surge pricing for laundry.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. And, when we started that campaign, we weren't sure what would happen. But at the end of the month, we were just blown away by how much impact it had. It was just crazy impact. So we saw Wednesday usage went way up. And the operator was convinced that, yes, there is something here. And so we'll actually allow people to use their own campaigns. So that's one of the features that we have is where people can actually offer buy one, get one free, stuff like that. So, and it's self-managed by the operators. So we don't have to get involved with every campaign that happens.
Okay. And so let's go into, there's a couple innovations I think y'all have done that's really worth exploring that I think other people will find interesting. First off is the fact that you've got 500,000 machines.
Yes.
And you have the ability to manage and see all of those, which I think would be really cool for anybody, like the charging network, for example. I drive up to chargers all the time. They don't work. I don't know that they don't work. The company operating it doesn't know. It's a mess. But y'all have the ability to tell your operators not just like, hey, someone has just paid for the service, but you also can tell them if it's working or not. Can you talk about that process and how y'all manage it at scale?
Yes, so as you mentioned, we have 500,000 machines now. When you first talked to us, we had maybe 1,000 machines out there. But at scale, we have a management portal where operator customers can have a view into their machines, how they're working, performing, and so on. And our admins also have a much wider understanding of how the 500,000 machines out there are working. So we have something called Health, which if you click on the Health menu in our managed portal, you can find out if there are machines that have not operated in, say, last 2 weeks. All right, so you can drill down into, okay, what was the last time this machine worked? If it was working pretty hard before and suddenly stopped working, then that's a clear indication that something's off. Maybe the machine's down, maybe the power's off. So then you can send a tech there and then find out. Right, so that's sort of the old way of doing things where, okay, we have a broad understanding of something's not working. So the question is, what is not working and how do you find out more? So then one of the innovations we had was we added a serial protocol in Bluekey. Previously, it was all pulse-based protocol where we just emulated the coins. Every time you drop a coin, the machine generates a pulse and it gets registered by the machine controller. We had the same thing where we would actually send pulses electronically to the machine. But then with this new protocol called serial protocol, we actually talked the machine's language. The machine actually was smart enough to report errors. So for example, a laundry machine has a heating element that stopped working, right? So there's an error code for that. And it could report it if it had the ability. So we built this ability in Bluekey where you could actually say, okay, there's an error code number this, and that corresponds to heating element's gone. So then we can actually report that. We can drill down into exactly what's wrong with the machine. And then when the tech arrives, he has the right equipment and the right parts and things like that too.
Everything the IoT is supposed to enable.
Exactly.
Now, I thought this was really interesting because I know that Whirlpool, Kenmore, Speed Queen, whoever all these laundry machines, for example, they all are trying to offer like laundry as a service to their customers, to the operators. And they feel like, oh my gosh, that's our proprietary data. We're going to do predictive analytics. So do they want to give this data away?
Well, initial instinct is no. They don't. It's proprietary. They don't want to give it to anybody else. They want to control that information. But the big issue that our customers have is even the smallest laundromat to the largest route operator that has 500,000 machines has a mixed environment where they would have a Dexter or Whirlpool or LG machines, right? So a system is not going to work, right? So Whirlpool system is not going to work on LG machines and so on. So you need a common standard. And PayRange is sort of the pseudo standards that brings the commonality to all these machines. And so we go to the manufacturers and also our operator customers who have a lot of leverage with them and say, look, you're not going to be able to do this with an LG machine and your competitor's machine, but we have that. We have the ability to do that, right? And they got persuaded and we were able to get the information from them. And so that worked out well. So in the end, it worked out for everybody. So all the parties were happy with doing that.
Okay. And this also brings up the idea like the Bluekey is a module that currently plugs in for most situations. And why not just put like NFC into individual washing machines to take the credit card? Like, why do it this way? What is the advantage?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So if you see the traditional credit card readers that you see at Walmart and Macy's and so on, they all have a UI on them, and they have to be connected. Because for the backhaul of the transaction is carried by the internet connection, and that's expensive. So imagine you have 500,000 machines out there, and each one of them has to be connected, and you have to pay monthly to AT&T or Verizon or something like that. That immediately becomes a non-solution.
I mean, that's kind of what Square is for individual companies.
Correct, but even the Square device is connected, so it has to be connected to internet as an independent internet connection. Yeah, the devices are very inexpensive, but the connectivity is what adds up.
And talk about places that maybe I don't get connectivity. What are the options? Like sometimes I'm in a parking garage trying to pay for parking. I don't know if you do parking. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you're deep in the bowels of the garage. You can't get connectivity, or areas that might be rural.
Yeah, so a lot of times garages or rural areas where there are laundromats and machines like that, they would have Wi-Fi as an option. And we just introduced this year a kiosk product that sits in the room near the machines. It talks to the machines over Bluetooth, and then the connectivity is provided by either a wired Ethernet that the room has or Wi-Fi that the room has. Or in the future, we could actually install a low Earth orbit satellite modem in there. And so for really remote places, that becomes sort of the conduit for you.
I can't wait till I'm like hiking in the middle of like a national forest or something, and they're like, "Here's your water vending machine, Stacy," and I'll be like, "What?"
Yes, indeed. In fact, one of my we were at a trade show, and one person just walked up to us and said, "Hey, we use PayRange, and you know where we used it was at a KOA campground." In the wilderness, right? So the KOA guys actually had installed PayRange because there were, again, no coins. And they had connectivity, even though they were in the wilderness, they had satellite connectivity. So they just hooked it up correctly. And yeah, people were happy.
There you go. I mean, Bluetooth, the challenge with connectivity is twofold, right? You've got to find something that's in all the phones so you can use it. And then you've got to find connectivity for backhaul. And most people don't think about how hard that is.
Exactly.
It's hard. I like the way y'all take it away from the customer for having to worry about the connectivity with the kiosks and that sort of thing. Because these are not tech savvy people that you're selling to.
Exactly. And neither are the machine owners. So like I said, they've been doing this business for a long time. They count coins and they recirculate the coins sometimes with changers and so on. But yeah, to bring them up into the current century, yes, it's actually gratifying and challenging at the same time.
So I'm imagining this world where I don't have coins. I'm okay with that. Do you think we will ever go totally cashless?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure if we'll ever go cashless entirely, but we're getting there slowly. But if you look at large economies like China and India, almost everything is done with mobile payments now.
Right.
Even the street vendors are taking mobile payments. The currency is pretty much gone.
All right. And this is a fun topic, again, going back to your massive scale and the fact that you're working on the edge. These are sometimes battery-powered devices, sometimes they're powered from the vending machines?
Correct. So today, most of the installed devices are powered by the machines, so either laundry machines or vending machines or a car wash machine. But there are some places, like you mentioned, the parking meters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're battery-powered sometimes, or they're solar-powered. Yeah, exactly. So those are very low-power places. One thing that was quite exciting for us is that we are entering a new vertical, which is pool tables. And you say, what? Pool tables? And yes, it is a huge, huge business. We didn't know, right? We have a couple of manufacturers of pool tables in the world, really large ones. And we are working with them in putting PayRange technology inside their pool table. The challenge with pool tables is that they are usually in the center of the room, and they don't have power. Right. So,
and people are drunk, so you don't want to pay. You don't want them tripping over the cords as they walk around.
Exactly. So that's a big challenge. So we have a solution for that. We actually have a battery-powered PayRange solution. So it's a Blue-Key again with low-powered technology and battery. For that particular use case, we also had to add some innovation to our app where we had time-based play. So people can play for half an hour or an hour, and then that way, even the bar owner or the pool table owner can actually enforce the timing.
Connected pool tables. I didn't think I'd see the day. If I'm a company that's building these pool tables, I feel like what do I want to put into a pool table from a technology perspective? You said they want to keep it battery powered, so it doesn't sound like they want a lot. Like, what's going to become more modern about the pool table?
Yeah, so I didn't know this, but believe it or not, in Las Vegas, there's apparently a championship that happens, with billiards championship, and they have 100 pool tables right next to each other. Every one of them operates on coins. So as the players make their selection, they play, they actually have coins stacked on the side of the pool table, and they would every time the players turns up, they put the coins in and then start the game. That's so ancient, right? And nobody has coins anymore. People hate coins, and especially during the pandemic, they didn't want to touch anybody's, coins and so on. But anyway, so the best innovation is that, hey, you can now, the pool table will appear in the app, and you just select that and you pay.
Are they adding like sensors to areas, or like Is there anything else, or it's just the payment that's being updated?
Right now, it's just the payments. So baby steps, we'll get them.
I don't know if I want my pool table to be like directly connected to the internet. I'm like, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I think as long as you can make the payment and get to use the table, that's good enough for now. But then maybe in the future, we can actually have sensors in the pockets that actually say they keep the score as well. And
so I don't get into fights with cheaters.
Exactly.
Okay. And then y'all have, because these are they're super edge devices, y'all have a really interesting way of handling updates that I think is worth talking about. So can you talk about that?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the innovations that really intrigued me a lot. It's an amazing, no one had thought of this before, and we have a patent on that. One of our fundamental patents, actually. So what happens is there are two ways of updating our Blue keys. Traditionally, what you would do is you bring an app close to the machine and keep the app open and hit update on the app. And that's one way of doing it. But what happens with somebody has 5,000 laundry rooms, sending text to every one of those rooms to update machines, that's really hard. So what we have is the innovation that we have is that every time a mobile transaction happens, a user comes to the machine and makes a mobile transaction, we download a few bytes of the firmware update. So the firmware packet is encrypted for every Blue key, for a specific encryption key that the Blue key has. And over time, as more mobile users use the machine, over time the whole image is built up. The bootloader inside actually checks the encryption, makes sure it is for that Blue key, and decrypts it, does the checksum, and then installs it.
It's like a stone soup for firmware updates. I love it. Okay. And this could work for all kinds of things. This could work for like updating machine learning algorithms. I mean, it's your patent.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Prashant, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here, Stacey. Thanks so much.
And that concludes this week's episode of the Internet of Things podcast. Please join us next Thursday, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you can't get enough IoT news, I would love for you to sign up at www.stacyoniot.com for our weekly IoT newsletter, where we explain all kinds of things that we don't even get to on the show. Once again, thank you for listening, and please subscribe.